Good afternoon. Thanks for joining the Paid Family and Medical Leave Division for our first statewide virtual town hall. We have some content provided to you today from our subject matter experts in the divisions, and then we certainly are going to leave enough time for your questions at the end of today's session. This is the first of 6 town halls. The second event will be on March 21st at 11:30 a.m. Couple of housekeeping notes before we begin. If you'd like to ask a question and you're joining by phone, please press *3 to be entered into the queue. We do have a number of folks on the call today, and we will do our best to get to as many questions as we can, but please note that we will likely not be able to answer all questions. For those questions we are unable to answer, there are a number of resources available to you on our website, and including an employer toolkit, employee guide, and pre-recorded webinars from our series that began last year. Again, if you'd like to ask a question, hit *3, you'll be entered into the queue. And again, we will get to as many questions today as we're able to with the time we have available to us. My name is Cher. I'm your moderator for today. I'm joined by my colleague David and a few of our other division subject matter experts. We will step through our slide content and then we will get to your questions. And thank you for everyone who has already chatted in a question online. So let's talk a little bit about paid family leave. As a reminder, this was passed by Colorado voters in November of 2020, Proposition 118. This program provides for coverage for certain life events, and these benefits will be available in 2024. Most Colorado workers will be able to take leave for things like caring for a new child during the first year after childbirth, adoption, or foster care placement of that child, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, caring for your own serious health condition, making arrangements for a family member's military deployment, and addressing the immediate safety needs and the impact of domestic violence and/or sexual assault. A little bit about what family covers. So it is a sliding scale based on one's salary. These benefits are paid for by both the worker and the employer. However, the employer is able to cover the entire premium if they choose. Again, it's based on a sliding scale up to 90% of a worker's wages, capped at $1,100 per week. The cap is proportional to the average weekly wage for Colorado and may increase over time. For your reference, we do have a benefit amount calculator on our website, so you can key in your salary and it will return to you what your contribution would be and the contribution of the employer if it is paid for by both the worker and the employer. As a reminder, premiums are paid on wages up to the federal Social Security wage cap, and this number is not set in stone. Now I'm going to send it over to my colleague David to talk about the differences between family and FMLA.
All right. Thank you, Cher. So I want to talk a little bit about those differences between these programs. So FMLA is a federal program, and that's the Federal Family Medical Leave Act. It's been around for a while. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, we celebrated its 30th anniversary. So 30 years of providing job protections for people who work for large employers. So FMLA is a federal law. It gives workers of companies with 50 or more employees the ability to take up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave for certain life events. Family is new. Family, and it's specific to Colorado. Family is a program that provides paid leave. So let's talk a little bit. There are 3 major differences between FMLA and family. The first, like I just said, family is paid. It has money. So we have some wage replacement benefits for people who are meeting one of these qualifying events. FMLA does not. FMLA is always going to be unpaid leave. Second, business size. FMLA, that's only going to apply to those companies with 50 or more employees. Family, there's some little differences for smaller employers with less than 10 employees, but it applies to virtually every employee in the state of Colorado. Unless you work for a local government or you're self-employed, if you're out there working for somebody else in the private sector or for the state of Colorado, you're covered underneath this program. Self-employed workers, now they don't need FMLA because all it does is job protection. And granted, I used to be self-employed when I was a lawyer in practice, and I did pretty much fire myself. But generally, you're not going to get fired if you're self-employed. So the job protection is a little bit moot. But self-employed workers can opt into the FAMLI program in order to get those wage benefits. So those are your three major differences between Colorado's FAMLI program and the federal FMLA. So we want to talk then a little bit, having set out those differences between the two laws, a little bit about how this is going to affect employers and how employers can interact with us. So for all of you employers out there, and based on the questions I'm seeing already in the queue, I think that's probably most of you. If you haven't registered yet, you need to do so before the first premium payment is due on April 30th, 2023. You'll register online via the My Family Plus employer, the employer services portal. Employers and TPAs are going to use to submit wage data and pay premiums. So I want to take a couple of minutes to let you know about some exciting new features in this portal. It's amazing. This portal just went live at the beginning of December, and our developers are still working on improving it, making it more accessible. So a couple of the options that are newly available there is self-serve options to manage the relationships between third-party administrators and employers. So what does that mean? If you're an employer and you have a company out there that handles your payroll, and they are going to be handling the reporting that's required for FAMLI for you, they're your TPA. And so there's some self-serve options in there so that you can authorize the TPA can authorize you to get into that account to do what needs to be done. Really exciting. We now have full functionality in Spanish. So if you need to get into this portal and you want to do it in Spanish, you can. And we also now have a self-insured private plan application. So if you are an employer and you are planning on not participating in the state program and instead plan to self-insure, we have all of the information you need to get set up on that. We've got guidebooks, we have templates to put out that application, and your ability to submit that application. We are expecting here soon to have private plans offered by insurance companies that you can go out and purchase as well. That function is going to be added as soon as we open up that marketplace, which I'm hoping is going to be in the next 45 to 60 days. We know there are a couple of companies already. They've sent plans over to our colleagues at the Division of Insurance to get those approved. And as soon as those are approved, we're going to get up there on our website so you can look at those and so you can apply. We know you're all eager to learn more about what those private plan options are going to be. So we do have a dedicated page on our website for all things related to private plans. You're going to find our employer guide to private plans, some past webinars where we've answered questions about those, the template that you need to submit if you want to self-insure. Now, if you want to self-insure, you got to have some security. You got to file a surety bond, and we're going to have the form for that as well, and the calculator to figure out how big that bond has to be. And even more on that. So there's all sorts of information in there. Now, here's the thing. I'm partial because I'm part of the FAMLI division. I think what we have here at the state is a great plan. It is going to be cost effective, and we're going to carry on a lot of that administrative work for you. But if you're looking at a private plan, that's where you need to go to find that information. And I'm going to kick it back over to Cher to talk a little bit about some other resources that are available.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. Again, if you are joining by phone and you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 to be entered into the queue. For those listening online who would like to ask a question by phone, that number to dial in is 833-305-1729. We do have a number of questions coming in online, but I'll close us out by just pointing our participants to a number of resources available online, which David mentioned. They're available at family.colorado.gov. And in addition to the private plan guide that David was mentioning, we have an employer's guide, an employee handbook, a payroll stuffer for our employers to share with their employees, workplace postings, and a number of other resources that are updated pretty regularly. So please be sure to check out our toolkit at family.colorado.gov. And with that, let's just go ahead and get into some questions. So let's start with David. Would you like to respond to Geraldine's question about employee headcount? If she had 11 employees in 2022, but in 23 she only had 5, do they still need to be considered as a 9+ employer?
Yeah, that's a great question, Geraldine. So we're going to be doing counts in the first quarter of every year. So that's what we're going to look at, and that's what's going to apply and determine your premium obligation for the rest of the year. So first quarter of 2023, we're in that right now. You have 5 employees. We are going to be considering you a small employer with less than 9 employees. If that changes next year, we'll reevaluate in quarter 1. But we do that count every year with the first set of premium payments in first quarter, and that's going to determine how large of an employer you are.
Perfect. Thank you, David. We have a question about rulemaking. Have all rules been adopted? I'm going to send this one to Evan. Evan, would you like to take this?
Yeah, sure. Basically, no, not quite. We prioritize our efforts to get the rules adopted that were necessary for the premiums part of the plan to go live in 2023. Forthcoming, we still have some rules regarding retaliation, discrimination, interference, as well as some rules regarding some of the program integrity aspects, and some pretty simple rules regarding coordination of information sharing with the Department of Revenue. And of course, as we get feedback from our rules that are currently adopted, we may be proposing some amendments to those later this year as well.
Thanks, Evan. We did get some feedback that the volume is low, so we apologize about that. We'll try and turn up our volume here. Next question. Let's take this one about a TPA, third-party administrator. I'm a TPA working with an S-Corp solo employee owners who are exempt. Do they still need to register and report each quarter? And I'll send this to David.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we've been getting a lot of questions about S-Corps, and particularly this situation where you don't have any other employees. You just got one person who's in the S-Corp. For federal tax purposes, they're considered an employee. Here's the thing. The entire arc of my professional life has been trying to avoid dealing with federal tax issues. So like me, family's kind of the same way. We don't really look at what the IRS says, are you an employee or are you not an employee? We look at the test that we have in our own statute for are you an employee or are you not an employee? And that is really are you free from direction and control in the performance of your duties, and are you customarily engaged in an independent trade? So if you are the only person involved in the S-Corp, there's nobody else to direct and control you, so you're probably free from direction and control, and you're out there, you're doing whatever it is that your S-Corp does. So we would consider you under the FAMLI Act to be self-employed. So self-employed people don't have to participate at all. You don't have to be a part of the family program, but you got the option to. So you can opt into the program. That'll be available in 2024. So you don't need to worry about it now. If you want to participate, when you're ready to participate, you can go sign up in the portal and opt in as a self-employed individual. And until that point, you don't have to file or report anything. You don't have to register. You don't have to report wages. So you only have to do that whether you're a sole proprietor with no formal entity, whether you're an S-Corp. You only have to do that when you're making that choice to opt in.
Thank you, David. Just as a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, it's *3 to be moved into the queue. And we're going to go ahead and take this question from Brooks. The question is the family portal new? We're having issues registering. It's saying we are already registered. I can either send that to David or one of our tech team members on the call.
I think that would be a good one to send to some of our product owners. They're going to have a little bit more insight than I would.
Okay, Corey or Ann, are you able to respond to this question?
Yep, thanks, Chair Brooks. If you're in the portal and it says that you're already registered, my guess is there's a high probability that your payroll provider or TPA has already registered on your behalf. So you can either contact us here at the contact center to verify. And also, if you have a close relationship with a point of contact at your TPA, you can also connect with them.
Thank you, Ann. Here's a question we receive quite often, and David, I will send this one to you. If they already have a paid leave program in place where they offer 12 weeks and the weekly benefit amount is at or above the weekly benefit amount through FAMLI, will that allow this to opt out of the program?
Yeah, maybe. So, yeah, that's a wonderful program, and I commend you as an employer for providing that generous amount of leave. What the statute says is that you have to offer at least the exact same benefits as the state system. So, yeah, that's 12 weeks for the covered events for a serious health condition, for the employee or for a family member, for bonding, for domestic violence leave, to prepare for a military deployment. So if your program does all of that, oh, and I should add an additional 4 weeks for somebody who has pregnancy complications. So if your program does all of that, you're on the right track. But where a lot of employers with those kind of programs are going to run into some issues with being considered self-insured is the security, because you do have to have that ability. You know, if you go bankrupt, that's still an obligation that's owed, is those family leave benefits. And so you have to have the security to make sure that those are continued to be paid. And we also here at the Family Division have a process in place for appeals, for adjudication. So if somebody comes in to you as an employer and says, hey, I need to take 12 weeks of leave because I'm adopting a child, and you say, no, I don't think so. If we say that, no, we're not going to grant you that, there's an adjudication, there's an appeal, it's going to go through a hearing officer, it's going to actually result in an order that is appealable, and that's something that if you have a private plan from another insurer, they're going to provide that, and they can still come into us for the appeal. And if you have a full self-insurance program that's been approved by us, you're going to have a system in place that is also going to be using our adjudicators and appeals process. So it's a little bit more than just offering leave. You're on the right track there, but we do need to look at the very specific elements of your program, how those are going to work, before we can make the determination that we would consider that an acceptable self-insurance program.
Thank you, David. I think we're going to go to a caller. So, Melissa, I'm going to make you live in our queue, and let's see if you can ask your question. Go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering how the family benefits intersect with employer-offered sick and vacation time. Do they supersede that if we have, let's say, a maternity leave policy? I'm just curious how those work together.
Thanks, Melissa.
Right,
David?
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a great question. And there's a lot of flexibility here. What the law tells us is that an employer cannot require that an employee use any type of accrued leave. So the employer can't say, well, you have to take all of your sick leave with this. But there's options there for the two parties, for the employer and the employee, to agree in writing to use that accrued time, and you can use it for a top-off. So family leave benefits are partial wage replacement. you can use that accrued leave if the employer and the employee agree to take you back up to your full average pay, whether you're salaried or hourly. So there is some variability there for the employee and the employer to work together. The big thing is just you can't force somebody to use that leave, and you can't deduct it. Well, you're out on family, so I'm charging you for sick leave. That's what you can't do. But if there's an agreement between the employee and the employer in writing for how you want to do that, there's a lot of flexibility there to find a solution that will work for everybody.
Thanks, David. We're going to answer a question, and Tracy, this one is for you. Jesse is saying, I'm with ADP. Should I sign up or wait for them to do it on our behalf? I asked earlier this year, and they said to wait, but I've received some emails to sign up. Tracy, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sharon. Thank you, Jesse. Great question. So we've been in regular communication with ADP, and they've been wonderful partners with us so far. At the moment, our recommendation to you would be go ahead and do your registration, and then as soon as ADP has completed their upload for all of their vast number of clients, you will be linked to them in the system as your TPA. So again, the message would be go ahead, go into our system and get yourself registered, and then as soon as we receive all the information from ADP, you'll be connected with them automatically.
Thank you, Tracy. Let's see. I registered my company with FAMLI. How can I verify that I registered correctly? Let's send this to Anne or Corey.
Thanks. Sorry, I didn't catch the name of who submitted it, but upon completion of a successful registration, you should have received an email confirming that it's been completed. And then you can log back into the portal, and in the upper right, I think over your name section, you can select the account management area of the portal and click into that, and then you can re-review all of your details around address, point of contact, things of that nature. So if you receive the email, you're good to go, and then you can log back in and double check all of the attributes are showing as you expected.
Thank you, Anne. We have a question here from Simon about private plans. How does an employer apply for a private plan? David, you mentioned this in your remarks. Would you like to touch on that again?
Yeah, Simon, we've got everything you need. If you want to self-insure, that's all available on our website now. You can get the guide. You can get all the forms that you need. If you're looking to purchase a private plan from an insurer, that's going to be a couple weeks out until we finally have some private plans that have been approved by our friends over at the Division of Insurance. But all of that will also be through the portal on our website, and we have the guide that you're going to need to look at to answer the questions and the forms you're going to need to fill out. But you can fill those out and submit them into our portal once we have that marketplace up and running, and we will then take a look and work on getting all of that approved for you.
Thanks, David. I did just want to note the phone number we mentioned at the top of the call. It's 1-866-COFAMLI. We have agents available to help with your questions on premiums and sick leave and FML differences, and help you with any questions that you may have. So again, it's 1-866-COFAMLI, FAMLI. Let's go ahead and go to a few questions in here about submitting premium payments and when. So generally, David, can you speak to, this does follow our unemployment insurance division processes, but can you speak to when and how to submit those payments and premium and wage reports?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Always love answering questions about how you're going to send money over to, well, I shouldn't say me, but to our program. So premium submissions are going to be due within 30 days of the end of a quarter, quarter one, quarter two, quarter three. So quarter one ends on March 31st, then June 30th, September 30th, and December 30th. Now you're going to have 30 days. We are going to have a grace period this quarter because it's the first one. So we're not going to be looking at any type of enforcement actions until the end of May on that. So you got a little bit of extra time to get everything together. Those premium submissions are going to come in through our through that online portal. So you're going to be able to go in, fill out all of the information. Our toolkit right now has the information you'll need on formatting and how to set up your wage reports to put it into our system. Then we'll calculate out the premium for you, and then you'll be able to transmit that all through that portal using the various methods that I'm sure we're all familiar with online checks and so forth for that payment. So it's all going to be through that portal, and it is actually all designed. We have a separate portal from UI. So we each have separate systems, but it's designed to look like the unemployment insurance portal. So if you're familiar with using that, you should be pretty well set to come in and use our portal as well. We didn't want to make people learn a new system.
Thanks, David. I'm going to send this one to Evan. Evan, Natanya would like to know, so self-employed people don't have to pay premiums till 2024. Do they still have to tell their wages on the portal to opt in?
So they don't have to do anything in 2023 if they don't want to. They do have the option of reporting wages in 2023 so that if and when they file for benefits in 2024, then it's easier for us to calculate it and we can adjudicate that more quickly because we will have to, by law, do that 5 calendar quarter look back. So if they want to prepare in advance and make that easy in 2024, then it's probably a good idea to go ahead and familiarize themselves with the system, register with the system, and start reporting those earnings. But again, they don't have to. They can wait and do all of that if and when they want to file for benefits in 2024. It just means that they're going to have a lot more documentation and information to submit so that we can accurately calculate those benefits.
Thank you, Evan. As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question by phone, it's *3, and that number is 833-305-1729. Next, we're going to go to Lee. Tracy, this question is for you. Are small employers required to pay into FAMLI?
Thank you, Shara. Hello, Lee. The short answer is it depends. It really does depend on how many employees you have in your small business. So if it is 9 or fewer employees, you will not have to make a payment as an employer, but you are still responsible to be the person submitting payments on behalf of your employees over to us here at the state. What you will want to do is go into the FAMLI portal, make sure that your business is registered, and then when you're uploading those wage reports to the end of the first quarter, you'll be submitting just that 0.45% on behalf of your employees, and you will not be required to match that as an employer with 9 or fewer employees. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Tracy. We did receive a question in about making these slides available. Yes, today's town hall is being recorded, and the recording and slides will be shared out with participants after the session. Thank you for that question. Let's see here. Question, are there any exemptions for clergy and or churches like there is for FMLA and Social Security? David, would you like to take this one?
Sure. And the answer is no. Clergy, churches, if your church employs the clergy, and I know sometimes there's other issues going on there that they might be independent contractors and so on and so forth, but if they are an employee of the church, then they are an employee under the FAMLI program, and the church does still need to participate. So in that respect, we're a little bit more like workers' comp than we are under the FMLA or the Social Security that does have those religious-based exemptions. So, if you're a church and you have anybody on your payroll, whether they're clergy or childcare or maintenance and janitorial, they're still covered under workers' comp. They're still covered under family.
Thanks, David. And let's see if we can get to the answer for this question. If not, Don, feel free to call in if we're not understanding the question. But the question is there a minimum or maximum number of hours to be used per day? Evan or David or Tracy, up for grabs.
I'll jump in and take that one because I see, Dawn, that you have another question, is how many hours of time off are included in the 12 or 16 weeks? And the answer is that we don't set this by hours. The statute tells us that you are entitled to 12 weeks or 16 in some cases. And so what we look at is the work schedule. So how many hours do you work in an average week? So for a lot of people out there, you're doing a 40-hour week. If you take a week of leave, that's the equivalent of 40 hours. But there are people out there who work unusual schedules, who may work more or less. If in any given week you do not work and you take leave for all of the time you're scheduled to work, that is a week of leave, regardless of how many hours it is. So if you work one day a week for 4 hours and you don't take leave, or you don't work, you take leave, that's a week. If you're 40 hours, that's a week. So it really depends on how many hours does that person actually work.
Thanks, David. This one I'm going to send to Anne or Corey. How do we apply for our clients, or do they need to apply?
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to go with an assumption apply means register. And either the employer themselves can register for My Family Plus Employer, or they can get registered by their third-party administrator. And they'll do a bulk file registration, so they'll take their body of client employers that they have and register them through the system.
We also have available APIs and manual upload as well.
Thank you both. We're going to send this one to David. A couple of questions coming in about childbirth in 2023 and if an employee can take the leave in 2024 to care for the child. David?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I know I've seen a couple of people asking variations on that theme. So thank you all for bringing that up. Underneath the Family Act, you can take that 12 weeks of bonding leave. And so that's for the birth of a child, foster placement, or adoption. Anytime within the first year after that event, the birth, the placement, or the adoption. So if you have a child who is born this year, but any part of that first year after that birth happens in 2024, you would be eligible for that leave. So really for any children born after the beginning of April, there would be a possibility that those employees could take the full 12 weeks in the beginning of 2024. So as long as it's within that first year, you can still take leave, even if the triggering event happened in 2023.
Thank you, David. We will be sharing out the recording of today's town hall and our site to all participants after today's session. So thank you for that question. Another question we received, will the town hall on the 21st be a repeat of today's? We hope not. We certainly hope that we have more to share about private plans as an example in that town hall, and certainly want to provide as many opportunities as possible to answer your questions. So we hope to provide new content as it becomes available to share with each of you. So thank you for that. I think we answered this, but let's go ahead. It's the question we get in quite a bit about S Corp. The question that I just lost on my screen is about an S Corp and what applies. So generally, David, can you speak to S Corp for us?
Yeah, so S Corps, we don't necessarily look at that formal business structure, however you're arranged. What we look at is the very specific nature of what you're doing and what your employees are doing. So if you have somebody who is working for your company, you got to participate in FAMLI. You've got to register, you've got to track their wages, you got to pay the appropriate premiums. That doesn't matter if you're an LLC, if you're an S Corp, if you're paying somebody else to work for you and they're an employee, you got to do that. If you don't have any other employees, it's just you in this business and you're doing what you do, then we really would consider you self-employed. And you've got that option on whether or not you want to participate in this. And I want to just take a step back because I got some flags in my personal chat here about an answer I gave you all a few minutes ago. So we were talking about the employee count and somebody who, they might go from 11 employees to 5 employees. We do look in quarter one, we calculate it, but I want to be clear that we do actually look at the past year at the number of employees you had, and we average out over that. So so that person who did ask, if they had 11 employees in 2022, but then 5 employees in 2023, with our look back, you would actually be a 10 plus employer.
Thank you, David. Just a quick pause. We're about more than halfway through our session today. We will have additional town halls in the future. The next one is March 21st at 11:30. And please feel free to use the various points of contact to get in touch with the division. Also, we do have a number of people joining today, I think well over 2,000, and a number of questions in the queue. So we'll do our best to get through most of the common questions coming in, but please note we likely won't get to everyone's question. Let's go ahead. Evan, I'm going to send this one to you. Are out-of-state employees working remotely for a Colorado employer subject to family withholdings? If so, can they later receive a benefit?
So if I understand the question correctly, the answer is probably not. If you work for an employer that's based in Colorado, but you perform all of the work remotely from your Kansas home, then you will not be considered a Colorado employee, and you won't be covered by the family program in any way.
Thank you, Evan. Also for Evan, is there a way for employees to opt out of this program?
No, basically. The only individuals that may have some option as to their participation are those local government employees where the local government employer opted out. If that happens, then the local government employee has that option whether or not to affirmatively opt in. But otherwise, those state employees or private industry employees who are covered do not have an opt-out option.
And one more for Evan, since I have you here. Does the bonding leave cover the non-birthing parent as well?
Yes.
Thank you so much. David, let's go back to you. Did you already provide your clarification? I think you did, but I just want to make sure that we covered.
We got that. We did. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much. Question we did address, I think, at the top of the call. What is the ETA for the private plan rollout? Tracy, how about you want to take this one for us?
Yeah, certainly. So the private plan system is operational. It's in place. We currently have several private plan carriers that are being reviewed by the Division of Insurance. They should have their review process completed within the next 45 to 60 days. As soon as that is completed, you will see those private plan carriers available for you on the portal. So a lot more to come. Probably expect some updates on that in our next town hall next month.
Thank you, Tracy, and I'll have you take this one as well. Do employers have the ability to interact with claims processing review and approval?
As far as things like reviewing medical documentation, that's not going to be an option. We will not be sharing medical information with employers. It's certainly possible that you may wish to validate whether an employee is still with your company and whether you feel that this claim may be invalid because you've already severed that employer-employee relationship. So there may be some input, but the adjudication process will be done by the team here over at CDLE.
Thank you, Tracy. Let's see here. Question here, does the family premium take precedence over federal tax deductions on paychecks? David?
It does not. So these are going to be post-tax. So your deductions come out. The family premium does not reduce the taxable wages received by the employee. So you're going to take out those federal tax deductions, and then you're going to take out, if you are deducting premiums, which is an option that employers have, you would take those out post-tax.
Thanks, David. Question from Tara, will I have to use all of my company-provided sick and vacation time before I can apply for the benefits? David?
Yeah, and the answer to that is no. The company can't make you utilize your accrued time. And Tara, I see a couple other questions from you, so I'm just going to answer these really quick because we did already talk about them a little bit. But yeah, if you are on maternity leave starting in December, you can still apply for family once you get into January, once those benefits are available. And both parents can apply for 12 weeks of paid leave at the same time. They're both individually eligible for it, and we don't have any grounds to deny it based on, somebody who you're married to or having a kid with is using it. So both parents can, and there's no requirement for you to exhaust other leave before you jump into to the family benefits.
Thanks, David. I don't think we've responded to this question yet. It's a good question. Does family protect benefits as well? Health benefits, as an example, do those continue when on leave? We'll send this to Evan.
Sure. The answer is yes. When an employee is on leave, then the health care benefits continue just as they were. So if, for example, the employer was paying 75% of the premium and the employee was paying 25% of the premium, that split maintains throughout the leave. And then just as a bit of added information as far as how the employer can collect the employee's premiums toward that employer's health insurance plan during the leave. There are a few options available to the employer. Obviously, they can just enter into sort of like a payment plan with the employee, where the employee would issue payment directly to the employer. The employer could also deduct that amount from either top off sick leave or PTO that might have been agreed to during that leave, and they also could deduct that from wages earned when they come back to leave. And all of this, obviously, so long as those deductions are consistent with the deductions allowed under the Colorado Wage Act. But yes, that's basically the only benefit that has to be maintained under the family law throughout the leave is those health care benefits. And again, it's just how they were before the leave started.
Thanks, Evan. Tracy, I'm going to send this one to you. The question is, my employer has only 3 employees. Am I entitled to this leave no matter what, or are there any small business exclusions? I've heard that employers with 9 employees or less are able to not offer the paid leave benefit. Tracy?
Yeah, hi Anna. That may be a point of confusion there. There is not an option for those small employers to decline participation. If any employer has at least 1 employee, they do need to register with us, and they are expected to participate either in this program or to be offering a private plan.
Thank you, Tracy. So we have about 15 minutes or so left. We have, however, almost 200 questions in the online queue. So if you would like to call in and ask your question live, we might be able to get an answer to more easily. That number is 833-305-1729, also *3. will enable you to move into the queue so you can ask your question live. Next question, what happens if we leave the state? Can we withdraw without penalty? I'm assuming this is an employee question, but please provide additional clarification if that's not correct, and we will send this to David.
Yeah, so if you leave the state, you're no longer going to be participating in FAMLI. So there is then a withdrawal, and that's, if you're a business and you decide to move your business out of state or to shut down, that's kind of the termination of your involvement in the Colorado FAMLI. And it's the same with an employee. Once you leave your employment, whether you retire, whether you leave the state, if you're not employed, you're not going to be paying into the FAMLI program anymore, and we would consider that a withdrawal. So there's not a penalty in most of those cases for anybody to stop participating as long as they have moved into a stage in which they're not required to. Now, for self-employed individuals, if you opt in, there is an obligation to continue to participate in the FAMLI program for the next 3 years. And quite honestly, this is a great question. It's one I'm not sure that we've addressed in our rules yet. And I'll ask Evan to weigh in here in just a second if I might be wrong on that. But yeah, if you continue being a self-employed in the state of Colorado, you have to participate in the FAMLI program for the next 3 years. Evan, if somebody is in that situation and they leave the state, can you provide any clarification on what would happen to them, or do we need to put that on the schedule for rulemaking?
Yeah, David. I mean, this is certainly something that we've discussed. I think basically the United States Constitution would prohibit us from penalizing people from moving. And so unless and until we have any sort of specialized localization rules that would include self-employment outside of Colorado, I think moving one's self-employment to another state would essentially remove their obligation for participating. But if and when they ever, return to Colorado, then they would still be under that 3-year requirement.
Yeah, and that's going to be based on where they work, right? So if you move to Cheyenne, but you're still coming south to work in Fort Collins as a self-employed individual, you'd still be subject to that 3-year requirement.
I believe so, but I do know that that's an area for further guidance, so I don't want to get too committal.
All right, we'll work on getting a better answer for you on that.
Thank you to you both. Okay, here. Let's go to a question from Liz. I work for a law firm. Our partners are owners. Will we have to include them as covered people? They do not get a W-2. David?
All right. So, and I see some other questions in there about W-2 and 1099 too. And so we don't necessarily follow that. What matters is, are you an employee? And Evan and I both come from other areas of the Department of Labor and Employment where we've done a lot of enforcement work, and we know that there are a lot of people out there who get 1099s who actually are employees. That's a huge issue everywhere, not just here in Colorado. But we're talking about partners at a law firm. That question really is, are you free from direction control? So if you're a senior partner and you are running the business, you're an owner of the business, you're going to look like you're self-employed, and that's the way we're going to treat you. But if you are subject to that direction and control of somebody else, then you would be an employee. And that's true whether you're getting a 1099, whether you're getting a W-2. If you're subject to that direction and control, those individuals would be an employee and would need to be covered under the FAMLI program.
Thanks, David. We're going to go to a participant by phone next. Anil would like to know how would FAMLI play into existing leave provided by their employer. And Anil, you should be live and able to answer or ask your question, rather. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my employer already provides paternity leave for 8 weeks. And so I know I'll get that in August or September once the baby is born. So can we still take the family leave next year on top of that, or we cannot?
David?
Yes. Well, so let me start with saying congratulations, because I didn't say that when I was answering the questions for the other people, but congratulations to all of you who are growing your family this year or next. So underneath the law, you get the family benefits. So you can take up to 12 weeks in the first year after the birth of your child, and that doesn't depend on what your employer gives you or what else you are provided. You get that leave, and so if any part of that 12 weeks or that first year after the birth of your child falls into 2024, you're eligible for those benefits. Now, what we can't say is that your employer has to continue that program. So that issue of the leave that you're being paid by your employer is really an issue between you and your employer, but it doesn't affect us. So from the family division's perspective, you are going to be eligible for leave in that first year after the birth of your child, starting on January 1st, 2024. And that doesn't matter if you've taken any prior leave provided by your employer or covered under any type of different program.
Thanks, David. I'm going to send this one to Anne. We had a question about the ability to make premium payments via credit cards. Anne, can you speak to the ways employers can make premium payments to the division?
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mary, for the question. We currently do not take payments via credit card through our portal, but I will share the ways you can make a payment. You'll be able to make a payment online with a checking or savings account. You can also mail in a check to the address available on our website, as well as if you're a larger entity, you may use the banking system and use the ACH credit network in order to complete a payment.
Thank you, Anne. Tracy, I will send this one over to you. Will employers receive a notice when an employee has applied for leave that's been approved or denied?
Yes, employers will be receiving a notification when their employees request leave, and then you'll also be notified of the decision made by the state, whether that leave has been approved or denied, and the expected return to work date.
Thank you. Anne or Corey, for you, a question. I've registered my self-employed business, but I don't want to participate. What do I need to do?
So there's a couple of options right now available is calling contact center. They can change your eligibility. We are putting in place some new features for self-service that will help support that eligibility change.
Thank you, Corey. Question, David, how about this one for you? I am one single employee in Colorado that works for a company in Massachusetts. Do I qualify for FAMLI?
Probably. So we go through and look at a lot of the very specific facts about the nature of your work. But if you work in Colorado, you're a Colorado employee. The fact that your company is based elsewhere isn't going to exclude you from participating in this program. So when we're looking at this issue of people who are working in different states, we do have to come back and look at what is the nature of your work. Are you working in Colorado? Where are you based? Are you based in Colorado? And where is the work that you're doing actually being done? Is it being done here in Colorado? And in those situations, in most cases, you are going to be covered under the Colorado Family Act. So if your work is performed entirely in Colorado, you're a Colorado employee. If you're working inside and outside Colorado, we would look at where your work's being directed from. If you're not really working in any state, other than, I guess, a state of mind, we look at your base of operations. And if you're working out of Colorado, that's probably going to be Colorado. So I would expect in most cases that you are going to be eligible.
Thank you, David. Quick time check. We just have a few minutes left. We have 2 folks joining by phone. I'd like to get to those questions if possible. Let's go ahead and go to Shayla. A question about principles of the business being included in the head count. And Shayla, I'm going to unmute you. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. I have 4 owners of an S Corp, and I am wondering if they are included in the head count to determine if they have to pay the contributions and if the company has to pay the contributions on those.
David?
Yeah, Shayla, that's a great question. And so we're going to be applying that same test on the head count and the contributions as we do for, say, the S Corp as to whether or not they've got to participate. So if those individuals they're principals, they're free from design and control over the work that they do, then they are not employees of the S Corp. They are owner-operators. And so they're not employees for the purposes of getting benefits. They're not employees for the purposes of counting how many employees that you have. So they're not included in that count. So for those purposes, if they meet that free from control, direction and control, then we don't count them as employees for the head count, and they would be considered if that's enough to drop you beneath the 10, then you don't need to make the full 0.9% premium payment.
Okay, understood.
Thanks for your question, Shayla.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to another phone question. We have Jessica in Sterling has a question about out-of-state employees. And Jessica, you should be unmuted. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi there. We have a client who has an individual that they are employing that's from Wyoming, and he's only going to be here temporarily until August. Is he one that they need to withhold FAMLI on?
David.
Sorry.
Yeah, probably. So if somebody's work in Colorado is temporary or transitory, then they're not considered a Colorado employee. So we have a lot of people who drive trucks across I-70, and they're in Colorado for a day, maybe 2, as they're making that trip. Those aren't considered Colorado employees. If we have somebody who comes into Colorado occasionally to pick up some supplies, again, they're really just passing through. But if we have somebody who is going to be working in Colorado for a period of time that is not transitory, then we start to look at them as, for the time they're in Colorado, being a Colorado employee. And so that would be a situation in which the premium should be paid.
Thanks for the question, Jessica. And with that, we are at the end of our town hall today. I know we had a lot of questions in the queue we were unable to respond to. We apologize about that. A lot of participants joining us today. A lot of these questions, as we're reviewing in the clue, these are available, answers available through a number of resources on our website. We just produced a small business guide, which will help with some of the questions, including S-Corp related questions. We have an employer toolkit, an employer guide, employee guide. Also, signing up for our newsletter is the best way to ensure you're receiving updates on all of the new information and resources available from the division. And our website, again, is family.colorado.gov. A follow-up recording of today's town hall and slides will be sent to all the participants. We really appreciate your participation. The next town hall is March 21st at 11:30 a.m., and we certainly want to be here available to you as a resource as you navigate this new program in Colorado. Thank you to our panelists and everyone who joined us today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Have a great day.